All right, so we are on week 7, day 3. We have started our web module, which this first week might not seem very full stack yet, but we're getting there. It looks like you've started with some HTML, CSS, and we're now getting into using JavaScript to start manipulating the DOM. The DOM, does anybody know what that stands for or means? Even just a high level overview. And Sean and Kim, do not answer. Somebody else. Or I'll pick somebody.
It's the document of the page that we are damn. It's the document of the of I'm thinking it's just the web page, but I'm thinking it's all the web pages that are in that in the HTML file that we link to when we define the script that we are using.
Okay, yeah. So it's the web page. And it's like the document of the web page. So what is the important part of the DOM? Why do we have, instead of just seeing HTML, why do we have this considered like the DOM? What is so special about this? I think it's document. I didn't write down what it stands for. I think it's document object model.
Yeah,
We
it's document
correct.
object model, but I don't know the answer to your question though.
I mean, it allows us to manipulate the HTML page. I mean, we
Mm-hmm.
don't have to write all that stuff in the HTML. We can use the DOM to do all of that for us, whether it's loading of the images, the removing tags, replace. So it'll give us the control that we need to do from an automation standpoint.
Yeah, so exactly. The DOM overall is a structure. It's hierarchical. I can't say that word very well anytime I say it, but so you notice how in our HTML it has tags and some are indented within other sets of tags. So this is like a tree-like structure where we have almost that inheritance going on. You can think of sort of loosely like that with classes where you can have parents and childs. So the DOM helps us kind of get these items within our HTML page without having to like define every single little thing. We can grab the whole head, which will include everything within this tag, or we could grab a child of the head, which would be one of these meta or the link. So yeah, it's just a way, a hierarchy that organizes all these connections so that we can grab things and manipulate it easily. That's abstract, that's fine. You don't really need to understand that completely right now. Just know that it kind of is the structure of the web page that allows us to manipulate it. So last time y'all learned about kind of how to grab specific elements within the DOM. Does anybody, before we even get into the lecture today, let's see, how about, oh, I feel like I always call them the same people. Let's do Hagao. Can you tell me how would you select an item within the DOM? Do you remember I guess the method you would call if you are there? Make it easy. We'll start off with,
Yeah, I'm here. So I need to look it up actually.
that is fine. We don't expect you to have this memorized yet, but even just trying to recall it and remember it will help cement it a bit better. Um,
Oh yeah. So Sean, he responds It's a use the query selector.
Yes. So we learned that you can do a document. Of course, you're going to define whatever variable you want this to be. Like if we're writing a button, we will do a document, which is the whole HTML DOM document, and a query selector.
That's going to be inside a JavaScript file though, correct?
Yes, that's,
Yeah.
you saw me looking at it like, why is it not auto-filling?
Yeah, I didn't want people getting confused because you're in an HTML file.
Yes, yes. We'll create one then real quick, just so, yes, there's no confusion. Okay, so we have our query selector, and then you plug in what element tag you want to grab. And so for grabbing a button, I'm gonna grab a button element. So this would select the object I want to work with in our HTML. What would I have to do if I wanted to add an interactive piece to this button? Like if I want this button to do something when I click it, what's the method for that?
You need to add a event listener.
Correct. So we have button. How do I do the event listener? Just
Add event listener.
And there we go. One of the first thing that pops up. And within that event listener, let's see, we can kind of read what we need. Oh, we need the type. And then let's see, a listener. Oh, this is hard to read. Okay. How about you tell me, what are the two things we need within this event listener?
An event listener is just a function method that takes another function as a parameter.
Okay. And so it executes when a certain event happens, correct?
So if we're trying to do a button, you could do in quotations click, and then comma, empty parentheses, a JavaScript function arrow into the curly braces, and then close it.
Okay, exactly. You can get this a little more fleshed out if you want to target the event specifically, like if you had an input box or something, you can always put an E here, which would be just this event, target that, and then you can do something with that in the function, which we will go into a little bit later here. So yes, those are the two things you learned yesterday that I saw within the lecture. You learned how to kind of select something by using query selector and then add event listeners. So there are lots of event listeners. I will drop this in our chat, but this is a list of all sorts of events that you can listen for in your HTML page. And sorry for the blinding white. I can't control that. But so we can see you all learned click, which is when an element is clicked on. But we have so many more things you can do when an element gets focused, an input, which is when a user inputs something. This is just a whole big long list of different events that you can listen for. And these would be what go in the quotations here for the event you're listening for. Alrighty, so then that brings us to today, where we are, where'd it go? Come back. Oh, it's in here. We're going to look at kind of kicking this up a notch, how to manipulate the DOM even more. Now that we know we can grab things and we can do some events, some listening to the events with it. Okay, so I'm going to pull that over to the other screen. If you all want to, I'm going to follow the lecture pretty closely in the README for this first part. So if you wanted to pull up your code and kind of code along with, feel free to. Let's see.
Going to be sharing your screen.
Am I not sharing my screen?
I
I mean,
can see it.
I
see
see
it.
it, yeah.
Seeing it, that's weird.
Let
Up
me,
top, do you have evening and weekend screen clicked next to meeting?
you are muted now, Kim.
Sorry, you guys keep going. I'll get it figured out.
Let me try stop sharing and then start sharing again, and we'll see if that works.
Jonathan, what did you say?
When she's sharing, it'll be like the three buttons meeting and then screen sharing. If you click on screen sharing, because sometimes I know I click something on accident and it goes away.
Okay, I see it now.
Okay, awesome. All right, so I am starting out with just a blank index.html page. This is where we're going to put our HTML. That is going to be our web page. Oh, actually, first, has everybody installed the extension? What is it? Live server? If you have not, go ahead and get that installed. That will allow you to you can right click and open with live server, and it'll show your web page as you're working with it. But hopefully y'all have that. Okay, so I'm going to copy over what the lecture gives us. We are putting together a web page, and we're doing it in a way where we have typed out this items line over and over and over again 25 times, which probably was pretty tedious to put together had we been typing that out ourselves. But thankfully I just copied and pasted. And we'll go ahead and copy their styles .css again. So we'll put that in our CSS file and save this. And they've set up targeting ID container, the body, items, and then specific when you hover over the items, adding a little keyframe too. So let's take a look at this page and what it gives us. Helps if I drag it over here so y'all can see. Okay, so that gives us this. Oh gosh, that is fun. 25 boxes that we have hard coded in, and when you hover over it, it sends them into this crazy spin. However, this was a lot, and us as programmers know there's probably a better way to do this without manually typing out 25 individual lines. So we are going to switch to doing that instead. So I'm going to take this out. I don't know if y'all have this extension as well, but I've downloaded an extension that when you start typing HTML, so you should have a few options here. These will give you kind of basic boilerplates, so you can code within those, but I also went and got the HTML. What is this called?
If it's a .html file, VS Code will automatically read shebang. So if you just hit exclamation point enter.
Yeah, but so that's good. You can do that. And it will have, I downloaded an extension for a little bit more. So any of those work, you can do the exclamation mark, but I wanted to get fancy. Is that the same though? Let's see. So it came with just a couple more things. It looks like it has it automatically having the style sheet in here, which is helpful if you forget where to link your CSS style sheet. And then it also has your script in here as well. Again, if you forget where to put that. So both work, and you can definitely use this and just plug it in. Or you could download extensions that flush it out even further and kind of help figure out where to put things. Dealer's choice. I am lazy and I want it to plug it in for me. So here is my boilerplate, nothing in here. We'll go ahead, we know we have a scripts.js and a styles.css, so we'll plug it in the appropriate places. So we always have in our head a style sheet, and that is what's going to be our styles, our CSS. So we'll go ahead and place that there. As you saw while I was typing it, it automatically came up because it automatically knew where it was located here in the same directory. Same with our script. We will go ahead and look, scripts is right there. We'll plug that in.
Quick question
Yes.
for the script tag, because we're linking style CSS in the head tag. If we put the script tag in the head, is that mess anything up or does it matter?
I'd have to look, but I'm pretty sure it has to do with the way that the HTML is loaded in on the web page.
I could have sworn to, like, this is like months back before the class even started. I remember seeing like an issue with like having the script up top of the body or in the head or having it at the bottom and making sure that it loads correctly, like you were just saying. Like you just jogged my memory when you said that.
Yes, yes. I think because a lot of things we're going to be doing with JavaScript, we want to make sure things load, or I'd have to look at the exact reason, but the head looks like a lot of metadata that you want in there ahead of time just to kind of set everything up to be able to get the rest of it. But like I said, it's a loading issue. I know that if you put it up, sometimes it won't work appropriately within the head. So if anybody Googles that before me and comes up with an answer, feel free to chime in.
Justin quoted Eloquent JavaScript saying if you put it in the head, it'll load it last as putting it at the very bottom of the body.
Oh, there we go. I vaguely remember that. Good point.
There's a lot of
You just
weirdness outside of that computer sciencey stuff dealing with the tree and the DOM, but I don't think that's important to this discussion. So.
exactly. If you take away anything, just take away, put it in your body, and period. So you can learn the whys and the reasons behind it, but a lot of what we do just kind of take that boilerplate and copy and plug and play. Set you up for success. Okay, so we've added our styles and our scripts to this document. We have nothing in there. Since we're going to be we want to do this by writing some scripts. We want to make all those boxes basically with a script in JavaScript. So in order to kind of make a collection and make sure everything is going to run well, we are going to go ahead and in our JavaScript file, we're going to add a window on load, which this is saying when our web page loads, excuse me, we want to do this and whatever we put in our function. So we're going to do a window on load. And again, this is coming straight from our README. Oh my gosh. If I can get equals this. I could have just copied and pasted. Okay, so on load, I want to do whatever in these curly brackets. We're just gonna console log for now. And say hi there. And we're gonna see what this does. So let me pull up. How do I get to seeing our console on this web page?
You gotta go to your developer tools and click on the console.
Oh, not page source. Oh, this is new. Inspect. Oh my gosh. Okay, I just updated recently. Okay, so inspect will bring up all your developer tools. We have our HTML document here. This is the DOM, see, with the hierarchical structure here with everything nested within it. And we have our console, which if we load, it comes up. I wanted to see it not loaded first. I guess I can't do that. Okay, so it says hi there. Our JavaScript's loading. That's what we wanted to know. We wanted to know that when this web page pulls up, our JavaScript is running, which it is. We told it to console log, and it is showing up in our console. Awesome. So we can go to our next step now, which we want it to do something on load. We don't want it to just throw out a console log. We want to kind of recreate the web page we had before, which was we want to create an H1 element, which what does H1 stand for? HTML.
The header
style one.
size. Yeah.
So that is the biggest header size we can do. Let's see. So let's see. The README says we're going to create it. Procedure for doing this is a bit tedious. We want to grab a reference to a parent object because we can't, as you saw in the last class, can't really plug anything in without selecting something first. So we want to grab a parent element, create the new element, modify it, and then append it to the parent element. So we're going to put this in here and comment it out so we know what we're doing. We want to grab a reference to a parent element and create a new element. So we'll start there. The README has me putting it directly in here, but we don't want to do that. If we keep putting all of our script within here, which it shows you in the next little bit of the README, it'll start getting cluttered. So you don't want to put scripts in here. You want to call functions that you've defined outside of this within there. So we're going to have a function here that we're going to define called function create H1. So this is going to create our header. So first thing we have to do is we have to grab a parent element. If we look back in here, what parent element could we grab to put this header within? About Allison. What parent element within this would you put the header within?
In the body.
Yes, I think that's a great place to put it. We'll put it within the body. So we're going to select the body. Let me say let body, and we know that we can do this by doing query selector, right?
Yes.
So we're going to query selector and we're going to grab that body. Okay, so we've got body now. Now we want to create the new element. So once again, following along with the README, because y'all can just cheat and read that and see where I'm going. We're going to create our header. So we're going to define that. And kind of like the above, if you want to create something, you'll always reference the document, our DOM, and we're going to create an element. So this is going to make an H1 like tag. It's going to create those tags. It's going to put this. Of course, it's not auto completing because we're not in HTML. But so this is going to assign this to H1. It's going to have those HTML tags. Okay, so we've got the new element created. We've got that H1 tags, but we want our header to actually say something now. So we need to modify that element created because it's empty. We created those tags, but there's nothing in there. So there's going to be no header. So here we're going to target that header we just created and set our text content to whatever we want. So we're going to set it to welcome page. Text content on, I'd have to see what we can do this with. I'm sure it's pretty much anything that has text within it. So we may be able to do it with like paragraphs, things of that nature. I'd have to play around with that. I'm not 100% sure. But here we can do our H1 text content and set the text. Okay, so we've created it. Or we've grabbed the reference here, we've created the new element that was empty, we've modified it to add our text, and now we want to actually add it in to our DOM because we've got our body selected, but we haven't done anything with it. You can see it's not used. It's grayed out here. So we haven't actually done anything with our body in our HTML. So this will look kind of familiar. We're going to append child. And we're going to send that H1 into the body. So we're appending H1 into our body. So now if we see this, what do you think is going to happen if I load the web page now with this?
I don't, you need to put the function inside the windows.onload, right?
Exactly. Nothing will happen because we haven't called this anywhere. We need to put it within our onload. So we're going to go ahead and do that and just call that function. So onload, we want this to run. Okay, let's save it. And that's not what I want. Pull it up and we can see it has already, I mean, it's a live server, so it continually refreshes and shows you your changes. So it's already got that welcome page here. We can look in our elements within the body. Oh, and we can see the H1 was made here, the tags with our text that we put in there, and it's been appended to the body parent. Okay. Easy. So now, what do we want to do next? Now we need to create a container for all the boxes we're going to be creating because we're going to throw up 25 boxes on this page. So once again, let's see, create a container, let's make a new function and we'll call it just what we are doing with it, clear as day here. We're going to create container. Okay. And within that, we are, again, going to be grabbing an element that we want to put this in. We're going to create a new element. We're going to modify it to make it kind of like what we want. And then we're going to put it within our parent. You're going to follow this pretty much every time you want to put something in through the script into your DOM. So we're going to go ahead and again, we're going to put it in the body because everything right now is going within the body. We don't want to put this within the head. We definitely don't want to put it within our header that we just made. So we're going to, once again, create our body. I'm just going to copy and paste, actually. And then now we want a container. So what is a good, and y'all can just cheat if you don't really know, but if we want to make a container for something, we don't want to define it as a specific tag. What would we use in HTML to be kind of a container around this?
Is it div?
Yep, we'll use a div. Good old div. It could be used for everything. So we're going to make a div just to kind of hold all this in. And again, we're going to create element. And we're going to create a div. Okay, so now what is this doing here within the README? What is this? Why am I doing this? Adding in.
Is that so you can use CSS to customize it?
Yes. Adding an ID to this will allow you to target it more easily with your CSS. Otherwise, you'll have to try to traverse the DOM and all the parent-child elements. So it's easier to just give it an ID. So then when we reference this in CSS, we can just target container for whatever we want to do to that.
I have a question.
Yes.
As I'm looking at this, and when we're, automating this through the DOM, I guess one of the things my concern would be we have different stuff on a page and in a box. And so as I look at this, I'm like, okay, that would mean all the boxes have this same ID. But sometimes we want to give it unique names, right? Because we don't want the same thing to affect everything from across the board.
Mhm.
Or am I looking at it wrong?
Yeah, so that's a good point. In this case, all of our boxes looked the same, so I don't have to worry about having specific styling for each of those boxes. But in other scenarios, you may want one box to look different than the rest. In that case, you would kind of get a bit more granular with your IDs. And as you create more elements, you can create more IDs for those. And you won't necessarily be creating web pages completely from JavaScript. Most of the time you will have it in HTML and you can list the IDs within your HTML as well. So this is just practice to get you familiar with creating a complete web page from JavaScript.
Okay.
And something else I was thinking about too, he just brought up is instead of .id, you could do .class, right? Because that holds less specificity, like the amount of specificity. So you can give an ID to a different one or a couple, and that way those will hold more weight with whatever you choose for that ID in the CSS. So they'll all have the same class, but there'll be different changes for the ones that have the ID as well. I mean, that might be getting ahead of us too much, but we talked about it yesterday.
Yep, because ID can only be used once, but class is multiple, correct? You can use it on multiple things.
Yeah. I mean, you only want to use ID once. Because
Yes.
what we read yesterday is like they each carry a different amount of points or whatever. So I think class was like 10, ID was 100.
Yes. ID will always win over class. If you target an ID, that styling will win for sure. I am not a master of CSS styling, so that will be a bit on y'all to research if you want to know more about how to target things more effectively. But that was a good point, Mike. You might not want to have everything the same, so in that case, you would do a bit more, a bit different classification with your IDs and your classes, but that's up to you to play with. Okay, so now we're continuing on. It looks like they're giving some style too, because they know that. Oh, okay, so what is this doing here? This style. I'm not super familiar with this, but I think I can guess what it's doing just looking at this.
Reading five times. I think the one FR is like the size of the page, so that would be like 100% of it.
Yeah, I'd have to look up what FR means.
I think it's like the frame, because when I was playing with it, I think on yesterday's challenge, I would do like if I wanted 3 boxes, I would do 3 and it would divide it by 3/3, I guess.
Yes, but yeah, that's exactly what it's doing. You're right on the money. It's creating a little grid here. I guess there's a display that you can set to grid. And then we are doing the grid template, columns and rows. We are defining that we want 5 of them and over the, I guess, the whole window frame, whatever we want to say. So this should be an equal division. And then, so we've modified it. We've got our container. We selected the parent element. We created our new element. We've set an ID for it so we can grab it more easily with our CSS. And we've modified it. And now we want to stick this on our page. So we're going to append it. And again, we've decided we want to put it in the body. So we're going to append child our div. All right. So now we've got create our header. We want to go ahead and throw in here, create container as well, because we want this function to get called as well. So if we go back to our page, well, it looks blank. But if we look a little more into this, we can see this div here. And it shows that it exists. A container was like, there's nothing in it right now. But it has, let's see, it has the specifications we gave it. It just doesn't have information in it yet. So we've got a grid though to contain all of our information. We can see it exists in the DOM. So we can do things with it. Okay, so we'll keep moving along. We'll trust the process here. So now we need to add our boxes to the container. So once again, we're going to make a function to do that. We're going to create boxes this time. Okay, so now what do we want to select as our parent element? Are we going to stick this in the body? These boxes? Nope. Gizam, are you there? Can you tell me what our parent container will be for these boxes?
I do not know.
Okay, so if we put it in the body, it will get stuck in here. But we did just create something that we intend to hold all of our boxes. Right here. So should we target the body again, or should we maybe target our container that we just made to hold everything?
Think of it like this, Gizem. As this thing loads, it loads up H1, it loads up each container itself, and now we need to load up each container with a function.
Yeah. I'm sorry, there's a lot of background noise. I kind of got distracted. I couldn't follow.
That's fine. Yeah. So if we just once again, right, oh, let me get back on the web page. So we made our whole web page. This is the body, the whole thing. But we made this little container, this div container. It's empty right now, but we wanna fill that with our boxes we're about to make. So we're going to try to target this. We want to try to target this to put our boxes into. Because we could stick it in the body, but we just made a container for it that's nice and neatly set up. So we're going to try to target that then. So let's try to grab the container. So how would I grab this container? It's still within our document. That's what we always do. And we're still going to do a query selector, but how do I grab this? It's not a tag yet.
You could use the ID.
Yes, exactly. That is why we have this. So we did it thinking we were going to target with CSS, but now it also gives us something to grab and target by the ID. So we're going to do that. To grab something by the ID, you put this pound sign in front and then the name of the ID. So now this will select the container ID element. Okay, so we've grabbed our element. Next, we want to create our new element. So here is where we get into a little more scripting. We want to create 25 boxes. So I'm not going to go ahead and quiz y'all on this. I'm just going to pull from the README here. But we're going to go ahead and just write a function to do that for us because I don't want to write that. So we're just going to do a little for loop. We're going to iterate through 25 times and go ahead and just create a box each time we do that. And it looks like we have some, again, we're doing styles. So we're doing inline CSS. Did you all learn the difference between writing the CSS in the style sheet and then doing inline in the HTML? No, maybe. So you can do CSS in a couple of ways. There's this way where you just target things, but then you can also throw it within, so let's do within the HTML. So we can do a div style. I forget the syntax, not equals. I'd have to look up the syntax, but you can throw it directly in this and when you close it, and then it will, everything within this div will be styled how you've set it to. So that's what we're doing.
There a general like rule of thumb, I guess, of when you would want to do the CSS in certain areas?
I don't have an answer for that. I feel like if it's maybe just one element and you just want to quick add something to it, I would just do an inline instead of trying to target just that one little element. But again, then you have the whole what's going to prevail in the CSS. So I'd have to look up if anybody can Google faster than me. If inline,
I'd imagine CSS would give you much more control because you would be doing individual parents and children relationships.
but it's not very dry if you have a lot of repeat going on. So it does.
So if we had made a CSS ID already, then we wouldn't need to do the div.style.background, div.style.border, div.style, right? We just give that tag the ID,
Mhm.
and then we wouldn't need to do all that extra inline CSSing.
Right, exactly. So this
Or-
can be done by just
Got it.
targeting it within the CSS file. But for some reason, they've chosen to do inline, which Google tells me from W3 Schools, great source, tells me that inline is highest priority and will override any external styles and browser defaults. So this is like the most powerful styling, just throwing it in.
No.
So we've got some style set there. We've went ahead and again, text content within the div. Interesting. Like I equals number. Okay, so we're setting the text content. Okay, now y'all explain this to me. What is this doing here? How about that? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, as it's iterating through, it's putting whatever number it is into the box.
Yes, exactly. And it looks like we are creating a box, also another, it's not a paragraph, it's not a header. What do we want to throw it into? We're going to throw it in a div. So we just created another div within this big container div that we've already established. So each box is going to be a div element, and we are just putting a text in that div equal to the number each time it iterates through. And again, finally, after we modify it, then we append it to the parent. So we are appending it to the container that we want it within. All right, so let's pull it up and see how it looks now. It didn't do anything because I didn't put it within our onload. Now it should do something. Ta-da! Here's all the boxes. And as we can see over here now, when we highlight our container, you can actually see how the grid is split up. So you can see where it did the 1 through 6 spread across the, oh, it doesn't go down. I'd have to look at that styling for that. But also here are our divs within the div. And we created each of these using that script to go ahead and just iterate through up to 25. All right, so we're almost there. Now we've got it, but we don't have, oh, let me take off this grid, that's annoying. When I hover over it, they're not doing anything. It had that cool little swirly going on. I don't think, does it have us do that? No. Yes, it does. Okay. Yep. So now we need to make it interactive. So we want whenever somebody clicks on a box, it changes to a random color. Because right now this doesn't do anything. So we already know how to add an event listener. So what we're going to do now, when somebody hover or clicks on a box, we want it to change color. So we're just going to copy this function to save time. Once again, we're going to select a container or a parent that we're going to put it into. So we want, let's see, this is going to be a color change listener. So we're grabbing the whole container that we created above here, this whole container with the grid. We are selecting that. We are adding an event listener so that when it's clicked on, what happens here? What is this doing here?
I have a question. Yeah, I mean, I can see what it's doing, but one of the things I am wondering about, since the boxes are not a button, and if you just click randomly, how is it going to know which box needs to be changed to from the color? Or is it just going to do all of them all at once?
So a click is an event, and each browser is set up so that when you actually click, it will see where your mouse is at that time, clicking, and target that location.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So that's when we're able, so that's why some of the events on that list were just like hover. It will track your mouse and note when it's over the location that your HTML is, that you're adding the event listener to.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Yes.
X and Y coordinates.
So then this here, to save time again, we'll go ahead. It looks like we're just picking a random number to string. Oh, it's going to be the background color. I forget what this is called, that code that the background colors come in. I'd have to look up again. But this is one of the ways you can target a color is with this.
Hex?
Hex?
I think.
Is that what with 16 digits? 16-digit color code. Yeah, hex. Good job. A plus. Okay, so basically it is, and like I pointed out earlier, if you add an E that takes this event and it targets it. So, or it captures the event, the click is the event. And if you want to target it, you add on the target. So the event target is going to be where you clicked. That is now the target. And it's going to change that style, background color to this random color. So again, we can't do anything. It's not going to do anything unless we add it up here. So we are going to go ahead and add it up here. So now we'll have a listener. This function doesn't just run on its own, it's listening for a click, and it should change the color randomly when we click on the page.
And that's looking for any click with the ID of container, correct?
Yes, so if I click out here, it doesn't work.
So every ID of container should have their own click.
So it's everything within this div. So it's not necessarily looking at each of these individual divs. It's just looking at this whole container. So I wonder if I can click, look, I click within this container in the background and it works to change that color. It's not one of these little boxes, but it's within this whole container. You can see it light up over here when you click what it's targeting. Are we following? I see some faces. So yes, if we wanted to just make it these individual boxes, then we could have kind of broken it down a bit more, but it would have been a little bit more. This is fun. Just make a Christmas tree. The simple things. Okay, let's go back to the code. So if we wanted to select these, we would probably have to do something like a little bit more intense. I'd have to think about this. Wonder if there's a way to just assign a random ID to each of them. I guess you could assign the ID to be the number. So as you iterate through, you can also do maybe a div.id equals, oh, would I have to? I wonder if that would work.
Is that because the background container is also a div of ID? Is that why it's changing the background too?
Yeah, so the background, it's all within this container. We did a grid. So that container is a grid, and part of that grid is this white space in between. Is that what you're asking? Like,
yeah, okay.
Yeah. So this is the whole div, this grid. It's how it's laid out. So it has like a little bit of white space buffer in between. You can change that with the, what is it called? Somebody knows off the bat. Let's look at, the padding. You can change that with like padding, margin, and borders and all this stuff. But we just left it as is, so it works there. But let's see. Okay, look, there we go. We can tell within our DOM that now each of these has a unique ID. So this is one. So if we wanted to change it so you only targeted these, then you could write something maybe to target each of these IDs instead. Possibly, but that's a way, and I am not looking at the chat. Hopefully y'all are, I never have that up while I'm lecturing, I'm sorry. But that's just, I'll look at those in a second here. An example of how to kind of dynamically set that ID if we wanted to target somehow later. But okay, is that all then? That was it. That was the lecture. Does anybody have any questions? I'm gonna go ahead and stop recording.